And we are off and running bright and early Saturday morning, July the 8th, 2023, 8 a.m. on the West Coast, 11 a.m. on the East Coast. Beautiful summer day brought to you by Pig in a Pickle. That's right, the best barbecue in all of Northern California, Pig in a Pickle. Check them out, 2 locations, Corte Madera and Emeryville. They're open 7 days a week in Marin County, folks, 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. or until they run out. And then in Emeryville, they're inside the Emeryville Public Marketplace, open Wednesday through Sunday. Pig in a Pickle. Get your barbecue at Pig in a Pickle. Say hi to Damon. Say hi to Mary. Tell them that the Krueg Show sent you. And, of course, we're also brought to you by New York Style Italian Sausage and new sponsor on the bottom of the screen, Marin Auto Glass, marinautoglass.com, 415-883-3030. Well, we're off and running. We're going to talk a little Niners. The coach is here. Coach fresh off a run with his dog.
Yeah.
What's your dog's name, by the way?
Hannibal.
Hannibal. Ooh, that's a great name.
So me and Hannibal just went out for a good run. You got to get him out. There's no way. He has to be out.
Yeah, and he was breathing hard. And Coach, I entitled this this is Krueg Coach 3. We didn't put up the Roman numeral today, but we will starting next week. Krueg and the Coach 3. Will the 49ers be able to keep both Sam Darnold and Trey Lance? And we'll get into the quarterback discussion has been primary with the 49ers all off season. A lot of people immediately I get this. It's clickbait. You're clickbaiting me, Krueg. And it's like, hey, I'm not. All my tweet was as basic as join me at 8 a.m. for the Pig in a Pickle Krueg Show as the coach stops by to talk 49ers and discuss whether the Niners are likely to keep both Sam Darnold and Trey Lance as backups. And then I point out that would be over $14 million combined committed to backup quarterbacks, far and away the most in the NFL. Join us and subscribe. And immediately I get this guy who's like, that's clickbait. You're not mentioning the fact that, with Purdy making $845,000, that the Niners quarterback room will be the cheapest in all of football.
Collectively.
Collectively between the three of them. I'm not, first of all, there's only so many letters in a tweet. Second of all, that was the launch point for the discussion. We're going to get into all of it. So everybody just relax, not clickbait. But I think it is fair to point out that there was, in the last 24 hours, there was a rumor, and I don't know where exactly it circulated from. I got to chase that down later today. But that if the Niners decide at the end of camp that Sam Darnold's not going to be on this roster, that Green Bay, who has Jordan Love, and then they have Sean Clifford from Penn State as their primary backup, that Green Bay might have interest in trading for Sam Darnold. And I started thinking about it. I'm like, well, you know what? That is interesting. The average third-string quarterback in the NFL makes about $1 million a year. Well, the Niners have signed Brandon Allen to a contract that is exactly $1 million a year if he makes the team. And then I'm thinking to myself, why would Brandon Allen even sign here at all? If he's going to be a practice squad guy, because he's going to make $200,000 on the practice squad. Why would he take an $800,000 plus haircut to be on the Niner practice squad? But then I looked at his actual salary, and it's $1 million if he makes the squad. So I think, we may be shaping this Niner quarterback debate differently than what it actually is. It's not, I don't know that it's Brock versus Trey or Brock versus Trey versus Sam versus Brandon. To me, the more I look at this, Coach, the more I think they're committed to going with Brock, number one, if he's healthy. Nobody's really talking about Brandon Allen at all, but it may be that he's the third-string quarterback and that the real competition this summer is going to be the one we've seen so far this spring, which is Sam Darnold against Trey Lance. The winner gets that number 2 job. And the loser, what happens? Because I don't think the Niners are going to keep Sam Darnold with the 12th highest cap figure on the team as their third-string quarterback.
And they're not going to pay Trey $9 million.
Well, I think it's maybe more like, let's get into it then. It may be more likely that the Niners might want to pay Trey $9 million to be the third than to pay Sam $5 million to be the third. because there's an investment in Trey. And I really think that if they think long term, that's probably the best way to think with Trey. But it does make you kind of wonder if Darnold or Lance, beats out the other, especially in Darnold's case. He may be, as much as everybody's talking him up, he may be trade bait at the end of camp. I know they can afford to keep Purdy and Trey and Lance, but the question is, would they want to have $14 million tied up in a cap
in backup quarterbacks?
Backup quarterbacks. What do you think?
I agree with you 100%. I mean, we talked about this.
Clickbait?
Huh?
Do you think it's clickbait, or do you think it's
no?
To me, it seems like a launch point for discussion.
I like this conversation better than the narrative conversations. I mean, obviously this is a narrative, but money is a little bit more concrete. You could chart it out a little bit more. And one of the primary reasons why Brock was advantageous to our organization was because of his price tag, right? We actually got a cheaper, younger, viable option at quarterback. So for all of the reasons that we know with the 8 games played, we understand why Brock not only works for us schematically and from a player and locker room and leadership perspective, but Brock works for us fiscally. Now, with Trey, if we're charting out Trey's $9 million made this year, plus his 5th-year option looming, and then we look at Sam from the money that he has laden in incentives and the timing that he came to the team first day of free agency, it does look like the real decision that the Niners are making would be between Brock and Sam. Well, not Brock and Sam, but Sam and Trey. Getting rid of Brandon Allen just doesn't make sense as far as your 3rd string quarterback, because if you keep Brock and Trey and Sam, well, what happens is that if Sam is your number 2, then we got a $9 million number 3 quarterback. That just doesn't make sense, right? And if you say, all right, well, if Sam beats out Trey, does Sam beat out Trey enough for us to cut Trey? And then if you cut Trey, that's not going to go away. If you cut Trey, then the title on what we gave Trey, and then who we cut him for, somebody else's 3rd overall pick in Sam Darnold, which truthfully speaking, not to be mean, but if we could sit here and say that, talk, candidly about all of the quarterbacks, Sam is a retrade, so for us to let go or cut Trey, the only way that I could see Trey getting cut is if he looks really bad. If he just looks that bad against Sam, then they could ride that. The organization could ride that through and say, hey, look, we gave him his shot. And in the middle of his shot, not only did he look bad, but he got beat out by a guy who's just learning our offense, right? But then on the flip side, if you cut Sam, you got to make sure that Trey is 100% what you need as the number 2 guy, because as soon as Trey starts to show any type of promise, they're going to be elevating Trey to try to see what he could do against Brock. The only thing there's a couple of reasons why I don't want Trey to get cut. One is because it raises the scrutiny on the regime and the coaching staff for letting go of a player that you spent so many assets for. 2, if Trey gets cut and then he goes somewhere and actually shows any type of promise, that looks bad on not only the coaching staff, but us as an organization. There's 2 different things here. There's the organization and then there's the coaching staff regime, right? I feel like Trey getting cut is a bad look on the coaching staff, right? It's a bad look on the organization. But Trey getting cut and then going and playing well is a really bad look on not only the organization, but the coaching regime, right? And that's going to be hard to come from, because if we're on the flip side, I'm rooting for anybody who's the number 1, who's the starting quarterback for the 49ers, right? Whatever the name is. There's one guy I don't want, but I just don't think that scenario will be fair to Brock. If you cut Trey, and Trey's out of the building, then our fan base, Larry. They're going to be on top of Brock like white on rice, man. They're going to be expecting the world out of Brock. And honestly, Brock is going to be in some type of weird position because he's got to be better than Jimmy, right? Who everybody said he instantly was an uptick from once he took over from Jimmy. And then he's also got to be more promising than what they've said Trey was going to be for us. So really, Brock is in a position where he really can't do worse than what he showed us for the first 8 games of last season if Trey's not in the building, because the scrutiny is going to be higher on him to succeed because of what we're getting rid of to keep him on the field. What you brought up in the last show, which I got to apologize to you because I thought you were tripping at one point. You were trying to put, and you did, man. You put out this narrative, and I was like, man, what the hell is Larry talking about? But you were basically saying if there's a way that Trey and the Niners can come off of his price tag to keep him on the team for longer, right? To prolong his development. And at first, when I first heard that, I was thinking there's a snowball's chance in hell that Trey would come off any type of money just to give the Niners some type of hometown discount to keep his development going. But if I could see, hypothetically, if Trey beats out Sam, right, and the organization wraps their arms around Trey and says, hey, look, we know what you are, what your ceiling is, and we know what you are for the long term. It's just that what Brock has given us, we have to see that out right now. Our locker room is galvanized around the kid, and he's got more experience than what you've got. Now, you just beat out Sam, which is promising to us, and we love what you're doing. And you very may well get your shot this season to start and show us what you can do. However, moving forward, we fiscally have to be aligned. Right? We're unevenly yoked fiscally. We can't have you as our number 2 quarterback paying you this type of money and with the 5th year option down the line. So what say you? Now, the way they may meet in the middle is Trey may say, all right, yeah, well, I may take a break for not for long, or you got to play me for the rest of the year before I give you this break. I need a little bit more to show and prove. Deals are made where both people feel like they lost something and everybody feels like they gained something.
It's a compromise.
So,
yeah.
Compromise. So I do see it that way, where if Sam beats out Trey for number 2, I don't see the Niners holding a $9 million number 3 quarterback. And if Sam beats out Trey, Sam would have to definitively beat out Trey, where it wouldn't make sense to even keep Trey as the number 3. However, if Trey beats out Sam, then Sam is trade fodder, because I feel like fiscally and for what it's worth, Josh Allen, is it Josh Allen?
Brandon Allen. We wish it was Josh Allen.
We wish it was Josh, right?
Can you imagine?
Brandon Allen just seems to be the perfect number 3 guy, right? He's got enough experience. You could put him on the shelf and he can come out and utilize and operate your offense at a nice clip. I don't think you keep somebody like Sam as your number 3. And Trey has way too much wrapped around him. And it would really hurt his brand, as the number 3 overall pick to be knocked down to number 3. I mean, cutting him may actually help him rather than keeping him on as the 3rd round guy. So for what it's worth, I see that Trey and Sam this preseason is going to be really big on figuring out what they're going to do with the number 2 guy. Because I think that, like I said, Brock has given us solid time on task for the coaching staff and the organization as well as the locker room to be on board. Cool. I'm okay with that. I'm done arguing that. Okay. And fiscally, it makes sense. However, he's a Presa Canario.
Tyler's asking what kind of dog is
Yeah.
Presa Canario, which is a huge dog.
Yeah, Spanish Mastiff. But I do see there being an impasse at that number 2 spot, but just simply for the money. The boys make too much money for anybody to be demoted to 3. So I feel like they would have to make a move.
It's to me, it's a really interesting situation because I kind of thought, okay, if you said to me, like, what are you envisioning? I'm envisioning Brock starting to start the year, and then the Niners having Sam Darnold and Trey Lance. But that is
The money don't say that.
$14 million in backup quarterbacks. Now,
Right.
they can afford it because Brock makes so little. But just because you can afford it doesn't mean you want to spend $14 million on backup quarterbacks. I would say that is far and away the most in the league. And if Trey were the backup, they may be spending almost 10 times what the average NFL team is spending on their third string quarterback. Now, I'm more fearful of cutting Trey than Darnold because I agree with you. I look at Sam as kind of a, he's failed in multiple. I don't want to say multiple spots because he had an okay year in Carolina, but he failed I think he turned the ball over a ton at SC. I didn't like him in the draft. Then he goes to the Jets, didn't show a whole lot, turned the ball over a ton, went to Carolina. He was better there, but let's not fall for the banana in the tailpipe. It wasn't like he was great there. He had some ugly games even last year there. So I look at Sam as this is his last shot. This is his last go around. He's in this, like, if he doesn't make it here, he's forever second tier guy in the NFL. This might be his last shot at a starting gig. But also he's only 25, and I could see where, like, Green Bay, if I'm Green Bay and Jordan Love's kind of iffy, I'd much rather have Sam Darnold than Sean Clifford. And I watch a lot of Penn State football. Clifford's just a guy, man. He's just a guy. He's not, there's nothing special.
Just a guy.
Yeah. So it's to me, that would make sense from Green Bay's perspective. I have a lot more fear in cutting Trey Lance than I do Sam Darnold. And I bet you Kyle does as well, because we all know that Trey hasn't played. And we all know that there's also kind of a sense of fairness that your fan base is going to look at you cross-eyed and say, wait a second, we didn't ever really see the guy fail, really. We just kind of heard that he was failing behind the scenes. I think, if they're going to move off of Trey Lance, one, I don't think they're going to be able to trade him. I think it's going to be, they'll either have to cut him or keep him. They won't be able to trade him. And if they cut him, they take a huge cap hit. If they trade him, they don't. But who's going to trade for a $9 million quarterback if he's not ready to play? And then I look at Trey and say, on
top of it,
yeah, go ahead.
You would almost want to cut him, Larry, because whatever you trade Trey for, it's not going to be enough.
Especially if he fulfills potential down the road.
Yeah,
I agree.
It's not going to be. It's not going to be enough.
And you're going to potentially look awful on the back end.
Yeah, it could, like, if you
blow up
for him and if you actually put a price tag on Trey, that could look, that's not going to age well if he does well. If he goes somewhere else and actually plays out, and whatever they trade him for is going to be repeated for his entire career. He got traded for a 5th round pick. This is what and then whoever traded for him, they'll be the genius.
Right.
They'll be the genius.
Let's go to the preseason, because let's predict how we think the quarterbacks are going to play. One, if they're going to play, and then how they're going to play. And you want to go first?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Let's start with Brock. Is Brock going to play in the preseason, or is Brock going to sit out the preseason?
I think Brock may make the dress rehearsal, the 3rd game.
Okay.
He may make it, and if he does make it, maybe a series. I don't really expect anything from Brock via preseason. As far as the 49ers are concerned, like if I was inside of the building, I'm more interested in what Brock does behind closed doors than what he does on preseason, honestly.
What do you mean? What do you mean by that?
Well, I want to be able to stress test Brock's arm through certain defenses. I want to make Brock try to make certain throws. And I want to do that in an environment where we can just solely focus on Brock's confidence in his arm. Playing the game with Brock where he could potentially either get hurt or show the level of health that he's at is just not advantageous to a team in the very beginning of the season. Because, this is the part of the season where teams truly are guessing. after about week 4, everybody pretty much has a bead on everybody, and we're just keeping up notes. But putting Brock out there in the preseason really isn't going to help the 49ers, on top of the fact that we have joint practices with the Raiders coming up, and we already have enough inside of the building to make sure to test Brock. I don't think putting Brock out there in preseason would just, I don't think it would do anything. I don't think it would give us any new data that we would need to know on Brock coming off that injury.
You want to take inventory on the elbow in practice behind the scenes.
I want to protect that elbow. I really want to protect that elbow. And even if the elbow's good, right? Let's say like we're about to knock the league socks off. This kid's elbow is back. I don't want them to know that. I honestly speaking, if Brock's elbow is especially what it wants to be, I don't want anybody in the league even beginning to figure that out until maybe week 4, week 5. Like I'm not letting anybody know what's going on with Brock's elbow at all, good or bad.
Okay.
That's why it's just weird to me about all of these like pacing reports that we get about him. Like, stop talking about him. Like, period. I wouldn't put any type of intel, information, any type of tipping my hat towards what Brock is doing. Everything that I would be doing with Brock would be in-house. Honestly, I really wouldn't even put him out for preseason, really.
I mean, I can understand that. Some people would make that same claim and don't think he'll play. I think if what they're telling us is true, is that he's looking, he's ramping up and getting healthy and looking good, so on and so forth. Who knows what it all means?
Exactly.
My guess is he plays maybe 4 or 5 series total in the 3 games. Like maybe a couple series in the first game. Maybe a couple series in the second game. Maybe he sits the third game if he looks good in those 4 series in the first 2. I'm thinking about 4, maybe 5 series is what he's going to do. And I think, it's hard to say because we don't know about what he recovers on the elbow. Mm-hmm. But I if what they're telling us is true and he hasn't lost anything, I would say, and he looks sharp, because I think he'll look mentally sharp because he'll have a whole year to learn this offense. I think he'll play 4 or 5 series and play relatively well. What do you think we're going to see from Trey in the preseason?
All right, well, for what I see from Trey, it's a lot easier with Trey because he's actually there. And I'd like to put out like kind of like a scheduling chart, how I would do this, right? So there's 3 games, there's 3 quarterbacks that I need to know about. I have my fourth and number 1 guy he's on the side getting ready. All right. So the way I would do it is I would want to see a first quarter of Trey to start a game of the first game of this preseason. I'd give the second quarter to Sam, and then give the second half to Brandon. Right? You get a whole half. And off that litmus test, I would go into week 2, and I want to see a full half of Trey and a full second half of Sam. And however they want to split it up, that's what I want to see. Either I would want to see Trey close the game and then see Sam start the game, give Sam the first half, give Trey the second half. And then the third, whoever wins out on that game, give them the full game on the third and final game. And then we would know who won. We would know who the guy is.
This is where I'm at. I think Trey's going to play well in the preseason. I really do.
I think he is too.
I think there's a very good chance that Trey plays well. What I'm seeing in practice, and granted, I'm only seeing 20% of practice. So how confident are you about speaking about any game if you could see only 20% of that game? You could say, well, this is what I saw, but you couldn't really say definitively, this is what's going on. You saw 20%. If you see 20% of an NFL Sunday game, you're not going around telling everybody, well, I know this and I know that. You're like, hey, man, I only saw 20%.
This is what
I only saw 20% of OTAs and minicamp because that's all the media saw. In what I saw, I thought Trey looked a little bit sharper than Sam Darnold, despite what Breer, Schefter, Rappaport, what all those guys are saying. Block that aside for a second. And I'm telling you, I was there. I saw Trey look a little bit better than Sam. Sam's got better throwing arm, as far as better arm strength, and took more shots down the field. But I thought Trey looked like he was in better sync with his receivers, and in the 7-on-7 and the team portion of the practices, I felt he was a little sharper than Sam overall throughout the OTAs, based on my eyes, what I saw. I expect Trey, after being in this very complicated offense for a year, to have the full scope of the offense. He looked to me, Trey, this summer, Coach, looked a lot more like Brock last summer, from the standpoint of Brock mastered all these drills and looked very calm doing it. This year, I saw that from Trey. So that tells me he knows the offense. He's got the mental reps. He knows the speed of the receivers and the receivers' tendencies. You know, how they get in and out of their breaks, what their tendencies are, how much he can lead them. He seemed to really be in tune. He also threw more spirals, less errant throws, more accurate. I think he's going to play well in the preseason. And I think there's a very good chance that Brock plays 4 or 5 series and plays well as well. I really think there's a chance that all 4 quarterbacks play pretty decently. Why? Because they have a good offense. They got a good offensive scheme, and you've got 4 really, really motivated quarterbacks, but they can't keep all 4. And there's no doubt in my mind they can't keep all 4. But that's what I expect to see. I expect to see Trey play well, move the team, have some highlight plays, take some shots down the field. I think he's going to look a whole lot better than people are expecting.
Yeah, I agree. Just off of mechanics alone, getting the ball out quicker, his footwork and his base being cleaned up, especially by way of Kyle saying that as well and confirming it. I do expect to see an uptick in Trey Lance. We talked about this last night. For all of the misfortunes that we've talked about with Trey, he's still been in the league for 3 years. He's still been in this offense for 3 years.
Yeah,
and
which is great. I mean, that means he's ready.
Right. I'm expecting to see a utilization of the offense. And that doesn't have anything to do with Kyle. That doesn't have anything to do with the offense or the locker room. That has everything to do with Trey as a professional athlete. There are certain things that I'm going to be looking for throughout the preseason. And one of them is that missing reads or not feeling confident getting the ball out. Those are things that kind of should be cleaned up by now. And those are things that we were seeing early from Trey, that we were giving him grace because he was not only developing as a pro quarterback, but getting his mechanics together and learning the offense at the same time. So a couple of those things had fallen off, where he doesn't have those on his plate anymore. And I would expect to see Trey to do good in the preseason this year. I expect him to be more consistent, make the easy look easy. I would love to see Trey hit layups, short layered throws that don't come out 100 miles an hour. I'd like Trey to actually be on top of these things, running the offense, showing a little bit more confidence. And this is from you got to love Brock, because it's almost like we say what we want out of a quarterback until it's until we're like bereft of the leadership that we once had. And you got to give it to Brock. Brock is ingested a leadership quality at the quarterback position that wasn't quite there with Jimmy before. And we've never seen it out of Trey. And to be honest, it's something that the locker room has galvanized around, and they've taken to it. And we know that this quarterback goes as this locker room goes. So I feel good. I feel good moving forward.
Oh, I mean, look at where they were last year, where they're finishing with Josh Johnson and they're flirting with Jacob Eason late in the year, and they went through their quarterback room. that was, I mean, that I gotta think that's the exception and not the rule. But I think if you're Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch, you left Philadelphia going, this cannot happen again. And I think to some degree, that's why they're so stacked at quarterback. But we've got a couple comments in here that I think, one that stood out to me. D2 says, stash Brandon Allen on the practice squad once the season starts. No one will put him on their 53-man roster.
I don't know about that.
I don't know. Brandon Allen, go look. Here, I'm going to name for
Brandon
you.
Allen's got some experience, man.
Yeah,
he's
Brandon Allen. He started 9 games or whatever.
Round third string quarterback. Brandon Allen was Joe Burrow's backup. Okay, so that's why. Again, and I'm glad that D2 brought this comment up. Is that leads to kind of where we kind of build the narrative through the money, Larry. Right? Is that if you look at it from experience, from actual play on field and time on task and pedigree, Brandon Allen honestly is kind of the perfect third string quarterback. He really is. That's why we're looking at Trey and Sam as kind of the outliers in our affordable quarterback room, because that's really where the expense is. We have the most affordable quarterback room when you add Brock and Brandon, but really the $15 million, the $14 million in our quarterback room this year is wrapped up in our number two spot with 2 guys there. So that's what we're really looking at. Whereas are we saying, yeah, the Niners, they say that, oh, we've got the best quarterback room in the league. We got this is a good problem to have. Well, fiscally, is it really a good problem to have? And are they going to eat that? Are they going to eat that $14 million to keep all these guys and cut an asset in Brandon Allen, which to D2's comment, he won't make a practice squad. He'll get picked up. Quarterback.
Yeah, let me give you an idea. Let me name you the third string quarterbacks in the NFC, and you tell me if Brandon Allen would have a job. Philly's third is Tanner McKee. Kansas City, by the way, just since they're the Super Bowl champion, their third quarterback is Shane Buechele. The Rams' third quarterback is Brett Rippon.
Is that Mark? Is he kin to Mark?
I'm not. He might be related to Mark. Mark was much bigger. This guy's smaller.
Okay,
but he played at Boise. Holton Ahlers from East Carolina is Seattle's probably number 3 behind Drew Lock and Geno. Clayton Tune is Arizona's 3. Dallas's 3 is Will Greer. Green Bay's 3 right now is Danny Etling. New York Giants number 3 is Tommy DeVito. Detroit's 3 is probably going to be Hendon Hooker. Tampa's 3. He's number 3, and they also have Adrian Martinez out of K-State, the former Nebraska transfer. Tampa's 3 is John Wofford. Minnesota's 3 is Jaron Hall from BYU. Atlanta's 3 is a guy named Logan Woodside. Wouldn't know him if you walked in the door.
Who's that?
Yeah, exactly. That's old man Woodside's kid.
Yeah.
Carolina's
Woodside boys over there across the tracks. Them Woodside boys, they're real good.
Yeah. Who's Logan Woodside? Oh, yeah, if you don't know who he is, yeah, that's old man Woodside's boy.
Yeah, that's Woodside boy. You know what I'm saying? Used to play over there for the Panthers.
Carolina's 3 is Matt Corral, probably the best of the group.
Yeah.
Bears 3 is Nathan Peterman. New Orleans 3 is Jake Haener. Washington's 3 is Jake Fromm. I mean, you could make an argument that Brandon Allen is the most accomplished third string quarterback that exists. So, and this idea that Brandon Allen, who last year made $1 million to back up Joe Burrow and has $1 million salary if he makes the Niners roster, I'll say this. I think there is 0 chance that Brandon Allen winds up on the practice squad. I think he's here as the third string quarterback, or he's cut at the deadline and then signed somewhere else for the league minimum, which would be about $750 to be somebody else's third string quarterback. I think he gambled on himself. I think he's saying, you know what? Brock's hurt. Trey's an unknown. Sam Darnold? Really? Let me get in that room with Kyle Shanahan and all those weapons, and I'll take a chance. And if I make the team, I make $1 million. If I don't make the team, I get cut, and I wind up somewhere else for $750.
Yeah, I'm the hardest.
He ain't making $200.
Backup quarterback in the league if I get cut.
I mean, think about it. You're a married man, right?
No.
Okay, I'm a married man. If I come home and I told my wife, "Hey, you know what? I made a business decision and I've cost us $800,000. I was going to make $1 million or at least, 750, 800 to be somebody's number 3, but I decided to go to San Francisco and now I'm going to sit on the practice squad. So what are you making, honey? I'm going to make $207,000. You're sleeping outside with Hannibal.
You're sleeping outside.
You're sleeping outside. You're not taking $207,000 to be on the Niners practice squad. There's no chance in hell. No chance.
You know what? And this is what's great about these conversations, Larry, is because we can kind of cut through the bullshit.
Exactly.
When we get to the money, right? If
money talks.
If you get to the money, the narratives kind of take care of themselves, right? And there's just no way that Brandon Allen is going to take that much of a beating. He's going to take a shellacking.
$835,000 haircut to be on the Niners practice squad when he was Joe Burrow's backup last year? No way. No chance.
No way.
Yeah,
so
no chance.
That there is
tells you a lot.
It tells you so much that Brandon Allen is locked in to be the number 3. And if he's not, he knows that he can take that and go right back and go make that money, right? Yeah. He can go make that. But the real deal is the $9 million attached to Trey and the $5 million attached to Sam. That's the real deal.
Right. Block out Brandon Allen. He's either here as the 3rd string or he's somewhere else as a 3rd string. He won't be the practice squad insurance policy. It's great for us. If you're a Niner fan, we'd all love it. A super experienced guy who was a number 2 last year, and he's the 4th string guy in the practice squad. That's a pipe dream. It's not happening. It won't happen. It's not going to happen.
I love that where it is a pipe dream. It's a pipe dream.
No way it's happening. And to me, we can also, if you're a Trey fan and be like, you know what, Trey's got to play. That's great. But if the reality is that unless we've been given the misdirection of misdirections by Kyle, by John, by Jed, by all these insiders, I think it's safe to say, and I think we all kind of know, that Brock Purdy's going to be the starter if he's healthy at the beginning of the year. So Brock's going to be the 1. Brandon Allen's going to be the number 3 or somebody else's number 3. He won't be on the practice squad. And it really crystallizes this quarterback competition as Sam Darnold versus Trey Lance. And if you ask me, I think all 4 quarterbacks are going to play pretty well and look pretty good. And then it's going to come down to nobody's going to be willing to if Trey looks pretty good, I don't think anybody's going to trade for him at $9 million. But if Sam looks pretty good, I think you could still trade him. And Green Bay and probably a couple other teams would say, hey, give him to me. And I think there's a very good chance that you may see the 49ers in August, not just trade a Sam Darnold, but maybe trade a Sam Darnold, maybe trade, there's talk that if Jack Coletto, the undrafted rookie free agent, if he doesn't make the team, that some team may give the Niners a day 3 pick for Coletto. Zane Gonzalez, the backup kicker, if Jake Moody beats him out, you may see him flipped for a day 3 pick. There's a couple other guys, maybe Kinlaw, maybe Ambry Thomas, maybe a receiver.
Let me ask you this, Larry.
I think you may see the Niners bolster their inventory of 2024 draft picks on day 3 in August at the cutdown by kind of saying, here, you want Zane Gonzalez, blankety blank team, give us a 7th. Hey, you want Jack Coletto, Dallas Cowboys? Give us a 7th.
I mean, honestly, the Niners have shown.
I think they might do that.
In a way, if you look through patterns, the Niners have done they've done an exceptional job with how they utilize free agency with their players, especially how they ingest certain players where by the time it's time to either let them go, move them, or trade them, they're either getting compensatory picks or compensation for them. The Niners have done a phenomenal. I mean, I really tip my hat to John Lynch on that front.
I agree. Just to add to that, I think the Niners coach have one of the best. I think they're handling free agency the best. Why? Because they finally get it. if you sign a bunch of guys that are similar to the guys you have, you got bad vibes. You got guys who are pissed off. You're like, hey, you're going to pay some guy from Denver to come in here when I'm sitting right here and he's making more. So I think Lynch has taken this different stance of we're only going to go for
guys that overshoot the mark
and guys who are difference makers. Like you can pay Charvarius Ward, Mooney Ward more than the other corners. Why? Because he's better. You can pay Javon Hargrave more than some of the other D linemen. Why? Because he's better. You don't have locker room issues paying Mooney or Hargrave. You have locker room issues when you sign a bunch of free agents and they start making more than the guys who you drafted. Then you got bad vibes. And then in addition, the Niners are signing one free agent, letting 3 or 4 walk and taking those compensatory picks. They're going to have 3 in next year's draft. I think they had 3 or 4 in this year's draft. I think that's the way to do it. I really do.
No, I agree with you. It's a method that you use where one hand washes the other, so to speak. And one thing that that a lot of teams in the NFL do, and I don't expect fans to understand this. A fan like myself is these locker rooms are filled with human beings,
right? And there's a lot of pettiness too. I mean,
there's tons of
there's a lot of, hey man, look what he's getting, look what I'm getting.
It's a lot of
on the bad teams, at least.
It's a lot of pocket watching, especially on the bad teams. And there's only but so much money to go around, and you can call a guy your leader, but really how a guy gets paid is how a lot of men try to figure out who's the leader and how the organization feels about certain people. And I feel like the Niners, not only it makes no mistake. There's no mistake that all of the Niners leaders are like not, just some, leaders in spirit, but they get paid like leaders. They get paid like they're the best players on the team, right? So, I do agree with how the Niners go about free agency and handle their business. It's very savvy, and over time, you have to look at the pattern, right? In the same way that we can notice patterns with our struggles with the quarterback situation, we can take that same eye and put it on patterns that we see with how we have ingested good free agency tactics. So I'm pleased with what we've done free agency wise. And I think it's going to keep going. This is something else that I kind of ran into is what happens if Sam and Trey, you keep them both.
They can afford to do that if they want to do it.
Right. Because if you look at it this way, if they keep them both, right, you could still trade them. Trade deadline's not until week 6?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't even know. It might be even later. Later.
I think it may be a little bit later. So you could still.
Yeah. So you could do it. You could hedge, especially if Brock, if you're, let's say Brock plays decent, or let's say Brock can't play in the preseason. Mm-hmm. Or let's say they opt to not play him, or let's say they still have some concerns about the elbow. Then you want as many guys as possible. But the idea that you can have 4, you can't have 4. You're going to have 3. So you're either cutting Brandon Allen and going with very expensive backup room.
He's not good enough. He's not going to be anything. He's not going to be good enough to just sit on a practice squad all year and just wait to be called on. That's not happening. Not in today's league. No. So,
everybody's got a different take on the whole thing, and it's funny. I'm looking at the chat. There's people that are like, Sam's a bum. There's people that are like, Sam's the truth. There's people that are like, where's this one here? Let's see. Where's this? Here we go. Mr. Clean. Sam was 6-1 when he left Carolina. He'll land QB1 in San Francisco. All right. There you go. There you got a Sam Darnold fan.
I guess.
There's all kinds of different, 49er Savage, not a Lance guy. Lance plays scared, doesn't know where to throw. I mean, I
3.5 games.
Not only that, when was his last game? I mean, we're talking about last September. Come on, seriously. And here's my thing. I've said this ad nauseum, but no, it's like I could scream this from the mountaintops and nobody ever hears it. But this is how I honestly feel.
Okay.
I feel like the Niners have 2 franchise quarterbacks. I really have conviction that they have 2 franchise quarterbacks.
Larry, this is.
I do. I really believe this.
Where you lose me.
I believe that Brock Purdy's better than people think. I think he's a legitimate guy. I know he's small. I know he was Mr. Irrelevant. I think he's a franchise guy. And I think Trey Lance, my evaluation of Trey Lance is that Trey has all the traits and none of the experience. And if they had a minor league system like baseball does, you'd simply send him to AAA, get him the experience, and man, you'd have something. So now you don't have that, so it makes it more complicated. But I still believe if I got to sit here and I got to bet everything I have on Trey Lance is going to be a franchise quarterback. When I say franchise quarterback, I mean a starting quarterback in the NFL in the top half. I'm not talking about Super Bowls and this and that. I'm just saying franchise quarterback means you're not looking for his bat. You're not looking for a replacement. You're satisfied with what you got. So if you're let's say 15-1, ranked 15-1 in the NFL, as a quarterback, I look at you as a franchise quarterback. That's a top half of the league quarterback. I think Trey Lance is absolutely that. He's not that today, but guess what? Yeah, I believe he's on the trajectory. He's going to get there. And that's what I believe. You can believe what you want to believe. Everybody can believe what they want to believe. I believe that Trey, if the Niners cut him or trade him, they will rue the day they did it, and they will look back at some point and go, we had that guy in-house and we couldn't get it. We couldn't get it out of him. So I do not want to cut him or trade him. I want to see him stay here. And I want to see him stay here and get and develop here. In a way, Coach, it may be a blessing that he's got a high cap number, because if he had a low cap number, I think there would be a burgeoning trade market for him, and the Niners may get off. But since they can't get off without cutting him, and cutting him hurts the team as far as the cap hit, I think their best interest is to keep him, figure out the money, and develop him over time. And just because, I'll say this too, just because you're not ready to roll at 23, and that's what I suspect. I don't know it. I suspect it. I suspect he's not ready to roll right now. But just because you're not ready to roll at 23 doesn't mean that you're not going to be a great quarterback. The league, I can name 10 quarterbacks that Steve Young was nothing until 31. Kurt Warner wasn't even in the NFL. He was literally bagging groceries at Krueger's at age 27. He didn't even make it to the NFL till 28. Sonny Jurgensen, Len Dawson, Dan Fouts. There's been several quarterbacks. Warren Moon. Several quarterbacks who didn't do jack in the NFL until they were 27. If this kid, people are like, he's had enough chances. He's 23. If he had 2 more years of failure, he would still be 5 years ahead of where Steve Young was. Think about that for a second. People think of it, it's like it's stamped official. Trey Lance can't do it. Steve Young, in his first 2 years in Tampa, and I love Steve, and if he's watching, Steve, I apologize for bringing up these stats. 11 touchdowns, 23 interceptions, 2 wins, and like 14 losses. If you evaluated Steve as fast as people want to evaluate Trey, Steve was a bust. He was a bust.
But Larry.
But he wasn't, was he? He was a Hall of Famer.
I got to hop in.
Go for it.
That was pre-salary cap.
Well, that's what's changed things. You're right.
Okay.
You're right.
Was free agency. Okay. So a lot of the players you named was pre-free agency. Some of them you named after free agency. But I guess my main point is that the Trey Lance experience has...
But that's about the money, right?
No,
that's not about
really.
The player. That's about the money.
Really. The Trey Lance experience has taught me a lot. And it's taught me about the landscape of today's NFL. And I feel like you can traditionally get a Steve Young or a Warren Moon or a Dan Fouts or a Kurt Warner the many names that you went through just now. If you have a team that's losing, if you have a team that actually has the patience to ingest a coaching staff, bring in a system, go get their guy, and lose with him while they're bringing the team up, right? But that's not what we did, right? That's not what we did. That's not how we built our team. And that's not in the era of today's league in which we built our team, where things are much more faster and capricious, right? That things are very fluid. And when you spend 3 first-round picks on the 3rd overall pick, man, 20 years ago, that story would have had so much meat on the bone that we'd have been talking about it forever. But I just don't feel like the news cycle really stays consistent anymore for us to really pay attention to what we spent on Trey. I don't think that's today's NFL anymore. I think that being relevant is the new game in the league now. Winning a Super Bowl is nice, right? It's awesome. You get talked about, but shoot, we're in the news cycle more than the Chiefs and the Eagles are, and they were in the Super Bowl, right? So
I mean, people are talking about it for sure.
Yeah. So for me, I'm not looking at the Niners to give Trey all of this time to develop based on what they spent on him, because they're in the conversation, and I just feel like paying the bacon today as an organization doesn't necessarily have to do with championships anymore. It has to deal with the algorithm, the content, the eyes, the people that are giving you their time. And I feel like the Niners are in this weird purgatory sweet spot where we're relevant enough to be viable and to have enough money. We have enough names and name recognition with our players. And then, quite honestly, we don't even really need a quarterback because Kyle is the quarterback of this offense, right? He's the superstar darling. So we get to it in different ways. But one thing that this entire offseason and just this experience has taught me is that traditionally you can look at things through a lens when the expectations are not being met. But if we're already winning, I just think that we're just making a brother-in-law's agreement with ourselves of like, all right, well, we didn't make the Super Bowl, but we're still making a shit ton of money. 1, 2, 3 Cabo. It is what it is. Like, you know what I mean? So
if you ran the Niners, I mean, look at it this way. Look at these guys like a hand of cards. You got 4 quarterbacks. How you want to play your hand?
If I have 4 quarterbacks next year, what did Brock do this year?
You got these 4 quarterbacks right now.
Okay.
And you can play your hand any way you want.
Right.
You can cut one, trade one, start one, bench one. You can do whatever you want. How are you playing your hand of cards? You go first. I'll tell you how I'm playing my hand.
I'm putting Brock on the pup. I'm starting Trey. I'm keeping Brandon Allen, and I'm cutting Sam.
You're cutting Sam. You're not trading him?
No, I'm cutting Sam.
What if somebody comes and wants something? We'll offer you something. You trade him.
I mean, I'll take a ham sandwich in a
okay.
You know what I'm saying?
So you're cutting or trading Sam. So you're putting Brock in the pup for a month. You're giving September to Trey as a starter. You're making Brandon Allen the backup, and you're trading or cutting Darnold.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because Brandon Allen sat behind Joe Burrow. Brandon Allen's really a number 2.
Yeah. Yeah. This is how I'm playing my hand. And this is assuming health for everybody. I'm assuming everybody's healthy. I'm starting Brock. I'm Trey's my backup.
Okay.
I'm trading Darnold.
Okay.
And I'm putting Brandon Allen as my 3rd. But then beyond this year, because this is also part of my hand of cards.
You cheated, Larry. You didn't tell me I could go beyond this year.
Well, no. I mean, okay, but this would be my plan. All right. I'm convinced. I mean, I've already stated it. You know where I'm going with this. I believe in Trey long term. I don't know if I believe in Trey short term. In fact, Can I
ask you a question?
I'm skeptical short term, but I believe in him long term. Yeah.
Take Trey's name out and put Brock in. Do you believe in Brock long term?
Yes.
Okay.
I do.
Okay.
I believe in Brock short term and long term. I think Brandon Allen is a backup, strictly a backup in the NFL. I think Sam Darnold is kind of a fool's gold, like one of those guys who looks like a prospect.
Looks like Tarzan, plays like Jane.
Like if they had a movie about football, Sam Darnold would be the quarterback.
He would be the perfect quarterback if they had a movie about it.
Seriously,
right?
He's central casting, but it just at the end of the day, it just doesn't happen. Yeah, he's the guy, but it just doesn't happen. Too many turnovers. I don't believe in him. There's something wrong there. There's something off. I got to see. He's the guy that I got to see succeed before I believe it. I will not believe it until I see it. But what I want to do with Trey is I'll go to Trey at the end of the year, especially if Brock stays healthy all year.
Okay.
And Trey doesn't really play, except, let's say, in mop up and some wins or maybe whatever. He plays a little bit, but he basically doesn't play. He gets no starts all year. At the end of the year, I go to Trey and I say, you know what? I don't want to pay you that fifth-year option. I don't want to pay you $17 million.
Right.
Do you want to be here? And he's always maintained that he wants to be a Niner. I think his dog might be named 49er.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what if you named Hannibal 49er?
I mean,
right?
It ain't hard to name him Falcon or Vikings.
Yeah,
that shit don't matter, Larry.
No, but if I go to Trey,
would be Roger Goodell after the time I'm done with him. I don't care about.
I'd give Trey the option. I'd go to Trey and I'd say, hey, look, I believe in your future. And if you believe in my belief in your future, let's work out a deal, get you signed to a multi-year deal, and let's keep it going. Stay here. Your time will come when your time comes, and maybe that will be.
Pause right there, Larry.
Okay.
Pause right there.
See what he says.
What's Trey's?
Why would he do it?
What's his initiative to do that? Why would he do that? Why?
Well, here's the only reason I would say he would do that. Because if nobody's wanting him as a starter right now, and if since nobody's traded for him, and we believe, at least I believe, that the Niners have made him available, or at least are listening to calls.
Mm-hmm.
I think that this is the place you want to be. This is the organization. This is the play caller. These are the weapons. This is the team. This is the only team he's ever known. And why would you, if you can't start, and you were going to be the number 2, wouldn't you rather be the number 2 here behind Brock Purdy than be the who's a good guy and you guys have a good relationship? In an offense that you've taken a couple of years to learn. Now instead of learning a new offense, you've got the same offense. You've got premier weapons. I don't think the Bay Area is the worst place to live. And you know what? I'd rather be the backup in San Francisco than the backup in fill in the blanks.
All right. So
if he wants to start somewhere right away and he had that opportunity, maybe that changes his equation. But I'd at least go to him, coach, and say, Trey, what do you want? What would you like to do? Right now, this is your situation. Brock's the starter. You're the backup. And you're developing by not playing as much as you can here. Obviously, you would develop better if you played somewhere, but there's no starting job available for you right now. What do you want to do? I'm willing to rip up the $17 million, give you a new contract that's more team friendly.
So hard.
And I'm going to cut. I don't want you at $17 million as my backup. But at the same time, I don't want to quit on you either. I believe that you're going to get there long term. And I would say the same thing to Trey that I'm saying right now on this live stream. Look at how many quarterbacks made the Hall of Fame who didn't really get rolling until they were 26, 27, 28. That could be you. The quarterbacks typically play. I mean, we saw Brady play until his mid-40s. A lot of quarterbacks can play until they're 40. So who cares? It's going to be a footnote in your career. If Trey Lance fulfills his potential in 2 years, he's going to have a decade or more of a prime in the NFL, and nobody's going to know or remember the first few years and how it started slow. How many times do people, when they talk about Aaron Rodgers, say, what did he do in his first 3 years? What did he do in his first 4 years? Aaron Rodgers, I think, sat for 4 years And then his first year as a starter was 6-10. 6-10. He's a Hall of Fame quarterback as sure as I'm sitting here. Nobody talks about those years. Nobody talks about that development. Nobody talks about it. Why? Because the guy's had an entire Hall of Fame career.
Larry,
so it's all about being in a good organization with a good surrounding cast. And isn't that where he is right now? That's how I'd play my hand.
All of that matters when he's on the field. When is he going to get on the field, Larry? All of that is cool. The organization, the locker room, the system, the coaching staff, the familiarity, the cachet, all of it. But it only activates once you get on the field, right? So if we're gonna get Trey to take a pay cut, right? Essentially, it's ripping up his $17 million fifth-year option. Then what assurances are we going to be able to give Trey that us paying him less is advantageous to him and not playing him and keeping him as a backup?
Because you're assuming, Coach, that somebody else would pay him that $17 million to start. And I don't think they would. I think there's no chance in hell. If nobody wants to trade for Trey at $9 million, no.
Hello?
As he sat for another year. Because that's the scenario. The scenario that I painted was Brock plays all year.
That's where we get in the weeds though, Larry, because that's just the thing. They know he's worth $9 million now, and nobody wants to take $9 million from him now because they've only seen 3.5 games. They're not going to add time on task to what Trey can do before he gets to that fifth-year option, because there might be a team that would take the plunge. There might be a team that say, "Fuck it, we'll do it."
Well, then he's going to want to go. Yeah, he wants to play. Steve Young wanted to play. The quarterbacks want to play.
The Niners know that the difference between somebody being in competition or being at play for that fifth-year option and them having the leverage to tell Trey, hey, we're just going to go ahead and why don't you just give us a hometown discount? Let's forget about this. This isn't the track that you were on. We're on the new track. You're our backup. We're trying to develop you. This is where we are. The only way that the Niners can really have a truthful and fruitful conversation with Trey and that be true is that they know they have not played him enough for the rest of the league to see him. Right. So even if they get to that sport, even if they get to that point, we gotta act like Trey is represented by savvy businessmen as well, right? Trey's not just some babe in the woods. Trey's gonna be looking at this like, well, cut me then. They cut me because what's gonna happen in your scenario is Trey will be labeled as a backup, and then that's it. That's it. Because once he gives up once they don't pick up that option and Trey's a backup quarterback behind Brock, that means that it's going to be time for Brock to get paid too. And once Brock comes up on his deal and Trey's sitting on his backup money deal, you know how it is, man. It's going to be hard for him to break out of that. So for him to take that with the Niners, it's essentially him acquiescing to the Niners and saying, yes, you picked me for 3rd overall. Yes, you spent assets on me. No, I didn't get developed enough. No, I didn't get to my full fruition. And I'm going to take a pay cut because of it and completely take a step back on my career and my brand. And I'm going to do all of this without testing myself against the rest of the 31 teams in the league. That's going to be hard, Larry. That's
well,
rich.
I know. There's a lot. There's a lot of elements to this, but here's the one thing I would love to know. Does Trey feel? Because I've heard this narrative as well, and I think it's a bunch of bullshit.
Okay,
which is the Niners mismanaged Trey. I don't think the Niners mismanaged Trey. I think the Niners drafted a very raw quarterback. Unfortunately, he got hurt. I didn't like the way he got hurt, but at the same time, I don't think they've mismanaged him. I would push back hard on the idea that Shanahan and Lynch have mismanaged him. I just think it's been to this point. They redshirted him. They may have kept Jimmy around as a hedge. Then, unfortunately, he got hurt. but I don't think they've mismanaged him. I think they've supported him. I think that they believe in him. They've never said a negative word about him ever, really ever. So I don't think they've mismanaged him. And I've heard that notion. He's been mismanaged. No, take responsibility for your own career and your own, path. I don't believe that the Niners mismanaged him.
I'm pushing back on this.
Go ahead.
I'm pushing back on this shit. So, one, let's take Trey out of it. All right. I feel like when we put Trey in there, there's a name, a face, a race, and everything that comes with that. Let's take Trey out of it. Let's just say Trey's the quarterback. They mismanaged the quarterback position. Not Trey. They mismanaged the quarterback position. All right. They traded 3 first-round picks to go up and get a pick. And when they got up to that pick, they didn't even know who they wanted. When they got that pick, not only did they say that they got that pick as it wasn't a Band-Aid, because we already had a starter in tow, okay? They said that this guy was the future-proof, our starter in pro, our starter that we already had, and to overshoot what we was already giving us for our system. Now, when he came in, they knew that he was raw and that he was a project. And he had 2 quarterback coaches since he came here, prescribed to him, all right? They gave the prescription. Trey didn't go out and go find these guys. This was prescribed. John Beck was prescribed, okay? They're still in management. Trey did not get better with John Beck. He moved on and found his own quarterbacks coach after getting injured. And you know what? I'm not even going to go into the play calling and Trey running 16 times and having more yardage scrambling than he actually did on designed runs, which you know about, right? We're not even going to go into that, but then we'll go into the broken ankle, all right? So we've had him for 3 years. He's been hurt twice. And, Larry, I literally heard you say, take ownership over your own career. Larry, that's rich, bro. They've mismanaged the quarterback situation. They have.
Well,
not only Trey,
I'm not saying the quarter. I'm saying that Trey
mismanaged the quarterback situation.
That's a totally different discussion. They've made decisions about the quarterback. I mean, they haven't made all the right decisions about the quarterback position. Otherwise, they would already have their firmly established guy and probably a Super Bowl ring at this point. But I'm just saying they have not mismanaged Trey Lance. And that's a notion that people have put out there, and that's garbage. They haven't mismanaged him. He got hurt. And guys get hurt in the NFL. Now, I didn't like running in between the tackles. Well, they got hurt on a quarterback run.
Larry, come on, man. Come on, Larry.
What? He got hurt on a quarterback run. So you're saying, I mean, hey, coach, I'm on record as saying I didn't like the play call, right? Okay, and I did this breakdown after the Arizona game, and I held Kyle's feet to the fire on the radio. And I said, hey, look, why are you running your quarterback this much? I discussed it with Steve. I discussed it with Steve Young. I said, Steve, why are they running their quarterback this much? I said, Steve, it's not sustainable. Steve said, you know what? I think they're running their quarterback this much is because they look at Trey and say, you know what? At this juncture, he's not ready to be a pocket passer, so they're running him more than they. And I said, Steve, I don't think it's sustainable. He said, Larry, I agree with you. I don't think it's sustainable, but I also don't think that it will be the plan going forward. It was just the plan initially because of how raw the quarterback was.
Now I don't know. What would you define that as, Larry?
What would I define what as? How raw he was?
That conversation that you just had with Steve, that conversation that you had with Steve. What would you all right, let me do it this way.
Okay.
Could you see how somebody listening to that conversation could deduce that Trey Lance is being mismanaged?
I mean, you know, everybody wants to see the guy play, and everybody wanted to see him play early. But if he wasn't the kind of quarterback at that juncture who could go through progressions, and Kyle called a few more quarterback runs, I don't look at that as mismanagement. I look at that as he's doing with Lance what he thought he could do, what Lance could do. I'll say this. I charted this after the Arizona game, Coach. There were 16 runs in that game. Mm-hmm. And I forget, it was 9 and 7. It was like 9 designed runs, 7 scrambles, or maybe the opposite. Might have been the opposite. Mm-hmm. On the scrambles, he took a hit only a third of the time and averaged 13 yards per scramble.
Mhm.
On the design quarterback runs, he took a hit every time and he averaged 3.2 yards per carry. I don't like design quarterback runs, and I really don't like design quarterback power with no lead blocker between the tackles. I'm on record as saying it. I didn't like it. I didn't like the play call, but I don't think that the Niners, first of all, this idea that they were trying to get him hurt, come on, that's crazy. They're not trying to get him hurt.
No. Nobody's ever saying that. That's crazy talk.
People have suggested that. They were not trying to get him hurt. All right. They're trying to move the chains. Now, I didn't love the play call. I also don't know exactly what he was able to do and not able to do in the grand scheme of the offense. I really don't. I don't know. But I don't think that they've mismanaged Trey. I think Trey is just, they redshirted him. They hedged on Jimmy. They had Jimmy come back. Then he got hurt. So now we're a couple years in here, and you've got a redshirt year. You've got an injury year. So I think we're all frustrated by it, but I look at it more as situational. I don't
and
think
then you got a third year where you brought in a retread QB from the scrap heap, and he's competing with him, whilst your other starter is waiting in tow coming off of the injury. At the very least, forget Trey. They're not doing too hot with quarterback. At the very least. I got to get that out of you today, Larry. I got to get that out of you.
Well, I mean, I think to me, I like their quarterback room right now. I really do.
God. Not the room, because we can't put a room.
I like Brock Purdy. I like Trey Lance.
We can't have number infinity quarterback room as our quarterback against the Steelers. It don't work that way. So we can't talk about the room.
Well, the thing is,
talk about what they've done to get a guy.
First of all, they've been in 3 of the last 4 NFC Championship games, so we can't pretend that they're crap.
But hey,
what?
That's gaslighting, man. Because nobody said that they're ass. No, everybody does that when they defend the quarterback situation. Well, it's not like nobody said that the Niners are ass. We're a very good team,
right?
We ain't trash.
But their quarterback, they also got a lot out of Brock Purdy last year. They sure did. He played really well. So
yeah.
We can't say that they didn't get good quarterback play. He led the NFL in passer rating.
From what you know, did the Niners develop Brock Purdy to get him to what he did last season, or did Brock bail out the Niners? Did he bail us out?
I would say it's closer to the latter. It's closer to he bailed them out.
He bailed us out.
He was a developed player.
Thank you. I agree with that.
Yeah,
I don't think
he was a developed player.
Yeah.
I mean, look at what happened to Iowa State when he left.
They fell apart.
Right. They fell apart. Look at what the Niners did when he got hurt in the NFC Championship game. They fell apart.
Don't do that.
They fell apart. They fell apart.
But it was Josh Johnson after that, man. Like, come on, bro. Don't do that. Like, because Brock Purdy, when they fell apart, like, we had no quarterback. And Josh Johnson was actually doing okay until the same exact play he got out the game with a concussion. Like, it's
I don't know, Coach. He wasn't doing okay. He had already not been able to get the play calls on time. They had already wasted a couple timeouts. He had fumbled a snap. I mean, Josh played poorly, and I like Josh. His agent is, my good friend. I interviewed Josh 2 or 3 times last year. He's a Bay Area guy. I like Josh.
I watched the first plays that Josh ran. Josh was actually getting the ball out. All right. Yeah. If we're going to talk about the NFC Championship game against a bunch of dogs ready to go, yeah, you're going to stumble out the blocks a little bit. That's why Joshua was there in the first place. I mean, if our team didn't stumble out the blocks, maybe we wouldn't have to depend on Josh Johnson right off the break. I ain't going to bring that up, though, right? But
I'm just saying I like the room. I like their depth. I mean, I just named for you the backup quarterbacks around the league. There's not a lot of I would say the 49ers, I would take the 49ers. I mean, obviously, you'd rather have Mahomes. You'd rather have Josh Allen. You'd rather have, Joe Burrow. You'd rather have, Jalen Hurts. You'd rather have, there's a bunch of guys you'd rather have. But as far as the room, as since the Niners had to use 4 quarterbacks last year, I like the room. I like Trey. I like Sam. I like Brandon Allen. I like, Brock Purdy. I think the room's pretty solid. I'm okay with the room as it is right now. I think that, Darnold's 25. He has potential. I don't know if he's going to be any good. He hasn't been good thus far. I like Trey. He's 23. He hasn't been good thus far, but we haven't seen a whole lot. Brandon Allen hasn't been very good thus far, but he's shown some moxie as a backup, and in this case, a third string. We just listed the third string guys. He's more accomplished than 99% of them. So I'm okay with their room right now. My thing is just they obviously they've got to win that Super Bowl, and they've got to put their best foot forward. But it's about how they play their hand of cards. And I don't want to get rid of Trey because I really think that you're going to look a bit worse in 5 years because Trey's going to develop somewhere else. But I would give him that option. Do you want to be somewhere else? If you want to be somewhere else, we'll cut you free, trade you, move you on, whatever. But if you want to be here, let's get it. Let's get that deal done too, and let's continue to develop. We're the ones who drafted you. We're the ones who saw talent in you, and we still believe in it. It's just we now have Brock, and he's more developed and ready to roll. And so we're going to go with Brock, but we want you here long term. That's how I'd play my hand. I think it's a reasonable way to play your hand. I think it's the smart way to play your hand because I do believe Trey's a franchise quarterback, but I also don't believe that based on 1 year of play in the last 5 that I would start him over Brock Purdy right now. But, we're talking about different things. We're talking about keeping him long-term versus playing him week 1. And there's people that want everything, right? There's people that want or predicting Darnold to be good, people that think Brock is the guy, people that think Trey's the guy. I like having multiple guys because NFL defensive linemen are dangerous people and they knock people out. And you gotta have a guy. And I agree. Once Brock went out, the game was over because Josh either wasn't ready or got concussed or whatever. But it was a major drop off. They went from, a guy who hadn't lost to they couldn't get the plays even run at the line of scrimmage. And I'll blame Kyle a little bit because I thought they should have been way conservative Larry, at the end of the first half.
Larry, you've been in those situations.
Brought it out in the second half.
Larry, you've been on the sideline when a guy is coming in the middle of a game and he has to be ready right now. There is no warm-up, and especially being quarterback. Larry, come on, man. I feel like you're being a little disingenuous. Yeah, Josh did stumble out of the blocks with some clerical situations, getting the plays out on time, getting to the line. But for what you're asking the kid to do right off the bat, to come in and play, coming off the street, all right, barely knowing the offense, Josh Johnson did his level best until he got injured. I just – and then comparing
I'm not saying he dogged it. He did his best. But, Coach, Brock Purdy came off the bench as a rookie, knowing far less about the offense, and played awesome against Miami.
Hold on, wait a minute. We're not going to make this a Brock versus Josh Johnson discussion.
No, I'm talking about backup quarterbacks.
Yeah,
but came off the bench and won a game.
Brock playing for 8 games and being in his 8th game with the team, and Josh Johnson coming off the bench, playing for the first time in game action with the 49ers in an NFC Championship game are 2 completely different things. They're not even close.
To me, the Josh Johnson that came off the bench, we can argue this all we want. Josh Johnson came off the bench. He's a veteran quarterback, and he's been in this offense for multiple weeks. Brock Purdy hadn't played in 3.5 months. And he came off the bench against Miami, stared down 0 blitzes, and beat them by 23 points.
Larry, Brock Purdy played for 2 months. He played for 2 months.
No, I'm talking about in December. He came off the bench. He had not played since August.
He came off the bench mid-season, not in the NFC Championship game in the playoffs. All right, Brock Purdy coming in against the Eagles in Josh Johnson's position. Anything could happen. Any quarterback.
Well, whatever. I mean, Brock Purdy came off the bench against Miami. He hadn't played since August. It was December. He played really well. I'm not gonna whatever on Josh Johnson. Josh Johnson's never really had a full NFL starting job. He's always been a kind of a career backup. So it's probably not a great comparison anyway. But I'm just saying that Josh wasn't ready for that situation. He didn't play well. And you saw the difference. I mean, they could not get plays called on time. I mean, they looked like a deer in the headlights, and even their own players. I mean, as much as the players always want to respect the other players, the players are like, we ran out of quarterbacks. I mean, that's Debo said it. Don't take my word for it. Debo's came out and said, hey, we ran out of quarterbacks. So, are
you trying to say that was Debo's veil sneak jab at saying that Josh Johnson wasn't a quarterback? I don't know what he was trying to say, but he said we ran out of quarterbacks and Josh was there. But he also might have been referring to Josh getting hurt, and then they actually ran out of quarterbacks. Yeah,
so there's that as well.
Debo was saying that Brock got hurt and then we ran out of quarterbacks. I think Debo was saying we literally ran out of quarterbacks.
Yeah, probably. We got this one from Michael. He says, this quarterback conversation is getting tiresome. Why are we so afraid to admit that the Trey pick didn't work out for us? Right now, we have no franchise quarterback in the quarterback room. Can we find one in the next 5 years in the 2024 draft? Now he's given up on everybody. Michael Penix Jr. Well, Penix Jr.'s got a hose. There's no question. But I personally think the Niners have two franchise quarterbacks. I think they've got a developed one with maybe a low ceiling, and they've got an undeveloped one with a high ceiling. But I think they got two franchise quarterbacks.
Will Kyle be the head coach by the time we find our franchise quarterback?
I think so. Do you?
No.
You think they're going to dump Kyle?
No, I don't think that Kyle Shanahan will be here when we finally do find our guy. I think that he's done enough. We were successful before him. We know how to win championships. He hasn't won a championship for us. What he's done to build this team is very good, but there are other teams in the league who have not only shown that they can build the same roster, but build it better and actually get a quarterback. I think that the league is all about what have you done for me lately, not what have you done for me over a course of time. And I feel like Kyle is cornering himself to get this franchise nice and fat for the picking for somebody else to come in with a quarterback situation and get him fired. I think he needs to handle this because you know how the league is, Larry. Yeah, you're great at one thing. You're great at play calling. You're great at putting a roster together, and you're great at developing. But all that stuff gets boring if you don't win the show. And you know this is a quarterback-driven league. Quarterback is the most important position in sports, let alone football. So you can call yourself, not even call yourself, but, ride on the news clippings of being, the subject matter expert of those things. But what about Andy Reid? Andy got shown the door and had Michael Vick and Donovan McNabb. He got shown the door because of what? He couldn't get that quarterback situation together.
So were the Eagles smart to get rid of Andy Reid then?
Yeah.
He's won 2 Super Bowls since he left. He just beat them in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, they had to move on.
See, I don't look at it that way. I look at it that I think they regret the fact they've moved on from Andy Reid. They should. He's got 2 rings.
Look at the teams with that the Eagles have had since Andy's been gone, right? Look at those teams. They still look like Andy Reid teams. They still use Andy Reid is what? And what is Andy Reid known for? Like what's his trade? What's he really known for?
Well, he was known as a guy who couldn't get it done and couldn't win the big one.
Right, but as far
now
as
he's won the big one.
Exactly.
Twice.
But as far as knowing what he does, right? Andy Reid is an amazing offensive line developer, right? He's such a good developer of finding gems in the rough in offensive line. His screen game is second to none, and he's a great developer of quarterbacks, right? So what did they do in Philly? They took his SOP, they let his stuff lay around the building, and they showed him the door. But you mean to tell me that the Eagles put together that offensive line on their own? No. They've been watching Andy for years do that stuff. And they ingested it in the room. And now they moved him along because they kept his IP, his intellectual property. Why do you think the Niners have a pre-existing scouting department? That's the only thing that's worked out of all of the other coaching staff that they kicked out of here. They kept it. They ingested it because they know it works. And they keep it moving. The same thing can happen for Kyle. He's no different, all right? What's special about Kyle is the run game. That's what's special about Kyle, that outside zone. But once they ingest that run game, his passing game ain't nothing special. You can get somebody in here to get that passing game together. And honestly, if you get somebody in who really knows what they're doing with quarterbacks, then that's half the battle because Kyle already brought in the defense. So the defense was something that he already brought in as an outsourced asset anyway. So the defense can be brought in. They've been outsourcing the defense since Kyle's got here. Robert Saleh, D'Amico Ryans. Now they're bringing in Wilkes. So defensively, they're already annexed. I'm talking to you about deep football stuff right now. You know what I'm talking about.
I just don't agree. I think Kyle's a top tier coach. I really do. I think he's whatever you want to rank him. He's somewhere between 3 and 8, somewhere in there. I mean, I think he's top 5, top 6, something like that. I don't. To me, okay, it's pro sports.
He's top 6.
All these people get paid big money. So
right.
You know what? And is Andy? I mean, I think the Eagles made a mistake in getting off Andy Reid. Andy Reid was a great coach. They said he couldn't win the big one. He's now in Kansas City. He's winning the big one. So obviously they were wrong. So to me, I think if the Niners get rid of Kyle Shanahan, he's going to go somewhere else. He's going to win a Super Bowl. And then you're going to sit there and go, what? They got rid of Kyle Shanahan and they upgraded?
I don't think anybody's, I mean, maybe a player.
I'm a Kyle Shanahan fan. I think he's a hell of a coach.
I know
I really do.
I know that. But what I'm saying is that
I think most people are. You don't think most people are Shanahan fans, Coach? I think most people are. I think the players are, at least.
This is what I think. Let me answer that. What I think is that Kyle Shanahan has fans, and Kyle Shanahan's fans have a problem with anybody who is not a fan. That, like, everybody can't be liked. Everybody can't be 100% like on. Everybody can't be on board about one person about everything. That's just not facts. Like, you do have to understand that there are credible people in the NFL who look at Kyle and don't think he's as good as everybody thinks he is, and that's okay. And that's okay. And they're not wrong, okay? They have another way of doing it. Kyle's offense is amazing. What he brings is amazing, but it's not unique to success. There's other people successfully running football teams completely differently than Kyle Shanahan. So he's not the only way, is what I'm trying to say.
Oh, I mean, and I've never said that. I don't know if anybody who has said that, but I think Kyle's just a really good offensive coach. I think his offense produces points. As far as, different ways to go about it.
10 in points in his offense 3 times before he was a head coach. He was the offensive coordinator for 16 years.
Well, his offense in Atlanta set the record for yards on first down. It was like almost 9 yards on first down, what they averaged in Atlanta that year.
Yeah, Julio and Matt Ryan to do that.
Yeah. Well, but I mean, he was the play caller. And how did those guys do after he left with Sarkisian? Not good.
Not good.
The same guys. G-Code Travels Vlog POV says Golden State Warriors signing Dario Saric this morning is like the 49ers signing Tayshaun Gibson. All right. Not sure if I see that correlation, but quality veteran. Luca Luna says, I love Coach. That's my boy right there. Hashtag good humans. Good humans. All right. Let's hit a couple other things before we get out of here.
Let me just one last thing on Kyle.
Yeah.
I would 100% be on board with Kyle if he gave up being the OC.
A lot of people feel like that's what he should be, is being just the OC.
He's not a head coach then. I think Kyle's a head coach. I don't think he's an OC. If Kyle gave up OC responsibilities, I would really I would really like that. I think that he would be a far better head coach if he got out of this cool kid play calling bullshit. Like, really. I think that's the last.
I kind of think the opposite. I kind of think he's, I mean, not to say he's tops at it as an offensive coordinator, but I think he's a really good offensive coordinator who you can question some of the decisions, some of the, like, do we go for it here? Do we not go for it here? Do we challenge here? Do we not challenge here? I think there's some attributes of game management and game calling, but that you could take issue with. But I don't take issue at all with his offense. I think his offense is kind of proven at this point that it produces points. I don't know. I mean, everybody's got a different perspective on it. Some people think he's an OC and not a head coach. You think he's a head coach and not an OC?
I think that if there was somebody else running that offense, we'd be able to see it in a different light. And I would think it would be a lot better with Kyle managing it rather than running it. I think he would do a good job. I really do. Because he knows it in and out. I just think he gets caught up in the weeds sometimes because he really, you know, it's hard to work for your business and run it at the same time. It's hard.
I have no problem with his play calling. I like the offense overall. My questions would be like on, you know, to me, he's too conservative. Like, you know, I think I think in today's NFL, possession of the football means more. I think you got to go for it, especially on fourth down. I think Sirianni and the Eagles, I think John Harbaugh and the Ravens, I think they've kind of shown the way that that's the route. Don't give up possession. Do not punt and you know, gain 28 yards in field position and hand the ball over to your opponent. Go for it. Go for it. And it's not, to me, it's not, the NFL's less in 2023 about field position, and it's more about big chunk plays anyway. So does it really matter if you give the team the ball at the 45, their own 45, or at their own 35 or their own 25? Not really. You're still giving up possession of the ball. I'd rather take that chance and maybe get a couple fourth down, you know, convert on a couple fourth downs, keep possession of the ball, and not punt it back to your opponent. I've seen too many times where the Niners are out of field goal range and they punt. And it's like, don't punt, go for it. Now, if you're backed up inside your 35-yard line, okay, you want to punt. But you're on the 40 or the, you know, all the way into the other team's goal line, you get to fourth and less than 5, go for it. I want to see them go for it. I'd like to see them go for it at a higher rate. And I'd love to see them copy that Eagles scrum play, because I thought that was incredibly effective, especially if the officials are going to give you a second effort and a third surge. And you've got, you know, to me, that's high percentage. I mean, it's like that rugby scrum play is, to me, I think almost bordering on needs to be changed, because I think it's so effective. Watching Philly operate that, it's you know, if you got 4th and 1 and you got a quarterback with some heft and an offensive line, and you put big people in the backfield, you're going to get a first effort, and then you're going to keep churning your legs and keep the pile moving. I think it's almost a lock. Anything under 4th and 3, it's like a total lock that you're going to convert that. I want to see them go for it more this year on 4th down. Give me an opinion or two around the league. Give me either a player or a team around the league that you're, you know, here we are, we're July 8th. Give me a player or a team around the league that, man, you can't wait for the preseason to see this team or this, you know, maybe this new player in a new venue, or just a team coming off of a strong off season, or a player you're really eager to see. I got a couple I want to throw your way. But give me one that you're looking for.
I want to see Jahmyr Gibbs in Detroit. I want to see what he does.
That's a great call. Yeah, I love Jahmyr Gibbs.
I want to see Jahmyr Gibbs in Detroit. I want to see what Jalen Carter does with Philly. Philly. I just want to see what Philly's defense looks like. They have a lot of moving pieces that they moved out. I mean, we got one of their guys. Speaking of it, and I want to see what Philly has dropped off. Also, I've been paying attention to Philly. They've been talking about Jalen Hurts taking over more of a throwing posture or a throwing leadership position in the offense. I want to see what that looks like. And I also want to see what their run game looks like with DeAndre Swift now. You know, they picked up DeAndre Swift, and I think they sent Miles Sanders to Carolina.
Yeah, he's in Carolina.
Yeah. So I want to see that. Speaking of Carolina, I want to see Bryce. I think that
I do too. That's a good
Bryce,
call. I think Bryce is going to be very, very good.
Yeah, and I also feel like Bryce is kind of he's the poster child for like the last small QB. You know what I mean? Like if Bryce struggles, there's going to be a lot of college QBs that are kind of smaller that are not going to push, because Bryce is pretty much, he's one of the, because Kyler struggled a little bit, and then Kyler's body kind of gave up on him. I just think that if Bryce struggles with how decorated he was in college, I think that's going to be an indicator that's going to kind of roll downhill for other college quarterbacks. Because I'm a big college football guy, so I'm really paying attention to that. I want to see how the Seahawks. I want to see how the Seahawks look with Geno Smith and that new, and just honestly, there's always a team that I feel like is quiet and they're just kind of ready to run it back off the success that they had from the year before, but they didn't really win anything. And I feel like the Seahawks are that team. They eked into the playoffs. They were a hurt team. They really didn't have anything on defense to stop the run. And when we played with them, we kind of slapped them around. It really wasn't a hard game. Even in the playoff game, they gave up against us. The touchdown run that Debo had on the screen, they were jogging towards him. They weren't trying to tackle Debo. So I feel like that's not a Pete Carroll team that would do something like that on the field. And it shows on how they drafted. So I'm very excited to see what the Seahawks do. I want to see Jahmyr Gibbs with Detroit. And I'm a big Ben Johnson fan. So I want to see what Detroit does with Jahmyr Gibbs and what Ben Johnson does to, you know, up the ante on what they've done offensively. I think that they're coming. And I want to see Bryce. So those are pretty much kind of the teams that I want to pay attention to.
Yeah, I'll tell you the ones that I'm really looking forward to seeing. I'm looking forward to seeing what this thing looks like in Miami with all the speed, because you got Jalen Waddle, you got Tyreek Hill. They added Devin Akane from the A&M. I'm an A&M fan. Akane is a burner, and from what I'm hearing from my friends who are covering Dolphins, that Akane stood out in the off season, and he is just an absolute. He can fly. And you got Raheem Mostert there, and then they added Jalen Ramsey on the back end. And, man, you got Ramsey on one corner. You got Xavier Howard on the other corner. To me, the Dolphins, if the Dolphins front is anything, I think the Dolphins are coming. I mean, they got, big corners and a ton of speed.
It's just like us. Miami's awesome, but it's all about Tua.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. You're right. It's all about Tua, and for him, more than anything, it's about health.
Yeah.
The other guy, and I want to see, and I don't know if we're going to see him, but I would love to see what the Colts look like with Anthony Richardson. Now, they have Gardner Minshew, they got Sam Ehlinger, but I mean, see, this is a team that I think Richardson is maybe the greatest athlete that's ever played the quarterback spot. I mean, this guy is 245 pounds, and he is fast, and he's 6'4", and he's got a gun. Now, I loved watching Florida, especially on the goal line and in any kind of goal line situation. Richardson was just, he's like a running back, but he's also 6'4". And he can break tackles, and he's got 4.4 speed.
I want to see what they're going to do with him through the air, though. I'd be very interested to see because Larry, when you see
he's got some receivers.
When you see an athletic, yeah, right. When you see an athletic guy at quarterback, the number one question that you're asking yourself is, what side of their skill set, what side of his skill set have they married themselves to? right? And they try their best to make it look 50-50, but it's really not. It's either they trust his arm or they trust his legs more, either one, right? And I want to see what they do with him in Indianapolis, because if they force the issue and try to make him throw the ball, you can see that they're charting him for the long haul, right? They want to get him better. So I want to see if they're okay with him making some bad throws or one hopping some shit, or if they just gonna turn him into Lamar and just have him, tear the whole league up. I don't know. Like, I feel like
he's dynamic. He is super dynamic.
I just don't want them to bastardize his skill set. I don't want them to just run him out there. I don't. I hope they care about the kid enough to develop him.
I mean, what a run game, though. Think about them in short yardage. You got Jonathan Taylor, or let's say they're going to run some RPOs, and they got Jonathan Taylor and Richardson holding the mesh point, and you got Taylor going left and Richardson going right, and you've got to defend that as a defense. And then you look at what they have with their weapons. Jelani Woods, huge tight end, huge. Yeah. Pittman, Alec Pierce. They brought in some speed with Isaiah McKenzie.
That O-line.
Quentin Nelson, the best guard in the game. But then I also love what they've done on the other side of the ball, because you still got DeForest and Grover Stewart, but you got Kwity Paye, and they signed Samson Ebukam. They also they also drafted the Northwestern kid, Adetomiwa Adebawore. They drafted Julius Brents. They drafted Darius Rush out of South Carolina. Man, I think Indy is going to be a team to watch for me. The other team I'm really eager to see is, I don't think Denver was as bad as their record last year.
Not even close.
I think Denver's coming on. They got Sean Payton, and then
I agree with that.
DJ Jones. They signed Zach Allen away from Arizona.
Denver's not nearly as bad as their record. I agree with that 100%, man.
Arkansas linebacker Sanders is there, and now you got Cortland Sutton. I don't know if they're going to trade Sutton, but there's a lot of talk they're going to trade Sutton. But they got Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, Marvin Mims, KJ Hamler. You got some nice weapons there. Dulcich, the UCLA tight end, in year 2. Still got Albert O. Russell, 1 year in the offense now.
Have you seen Russ lately?
Comes back. I haven't.
What's he looking like? He looks good. He looks like he lost like 20 pounds.
Yeah.
He looks good.
So I think Sean Payton's going to make a huge impact there. Mm-hmm. So those are the teams, right? It's, to me, I also have a high hopes for Carolina, but to me, it's Denver and Indy in the AFC as kind of my wild cards. That's I'll say that the thing that's the most intriguing about the Niners in their situation this year, Coach, is that I don't like the NFC. Philly obviously is Philly. I'm not a believer in Dallas. Minnesota, I think, is kind of playing out the string. I like Detroit, but I think Green Bay's down because of the quarterback switch. Tampa has no quarterback. There's no powerhouse team in the South. I really think the Niners are going to win the division, even though some people like Seattle. I see the Niners and the Eagles, Detroit, maybe New York. I don't know. I think this is going to be. I think there's a lot more powerful teams in the AFC than in the NFC.
I agree. And really, the AFC is. I think last year we charted the AFC being better than the NFC because of the quarterback play. I just think that it's straight up teams now. The AFC is just putting together better teams than the NFC. The Bengals got better. The Bills got better. The Chiefs got better. Who's not Las Vegas, but who's the other team out west on the AFC? The Chargers got better. And these are teams that already have quarterbacks. So, yeah, I think the AFC is trending up. They're much better than the NFC, quite honestly.
Who's your Super Bowl right now? Who's your July 8th Super Bowl matchup?
Bills, Eagles.
Okay, so you're not going KC. You're going with Buffalo.
Yeah.
Man, that's a tough one. That is a tough one. If I had to go, I'd probably say I'm going to say Niners Chiefs rematch.
Okay.
Niners Chiefs rematch.
I don't have a problem with that.
In Vegas.
This year's travel schedule is going to be really rough on us, in my opinion. I can see it having a real problem because it's not so much as the traveling, but it's the injuries. You can't fly when you're injured. You can't really move around. A lot of guys that usually kind of get that 2 to 3 week pocket where we get like a little homestand where we get injuries, guys can kind of get pushed back early. But I feel like there's going to be a lot of positions where there's going to be guys hurt. And because we're doing so many back-to-back travel games, guys are going to have to sit things out. So hopefully, we ain't going to go through the season completely unscathed, but I would love for us to trend up in our injury situation because every team gets hurt. It just kind of feels like we're the most hurt team, or at least one of them every year.
Oh, I know. If there's one frustrating thing, and that's the one thing I like. The old school approach of just playing your preseason games. The Rams do it the opposite, though. The Rams don't play any of their key guys in the preseason, and they just say, you know what, our money's going to be on the field week 1, and I don't care if we're raw. The Niners kind of play it straight, and they play guys in the preseason. I still prefer to go that route because especially with only one team having the bye. I think you got to hit the ground running. You got to be ready to roll week 1. And last year, the Niners lost week 1 at Soldier. So hopefully they can. And this is going to be the schedule makers did the Niners no favors. I think the Steelers are like 13-4 or something on week 1 and like 8-1 week 1 when week 1's at Heinz Field. 8-1. So, they always win week 1. And so week 1 may be ugly. Maybe in week 1, it may get ugly. Well, hopefully not, because
and that's not a hate. That's not like a shade on the Niners, but it's important for us to know the market. It's important for us to know what other teams are as good as us are. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Going into Philly week 1 is
Pittsburgh.
It's not impossible. It's not impossible, but it's a tall task.
2 last supers here. Steven Draper. Richardson has less college starts than Trey. Oh, I know. He's super raw player. Damon Dickerson says, where do y'all rank Russell Wilson among AFC quarterbacks? Ooh. Okay, so Mahomes is 1, Burrow's 2, Josh Allen's 3. Maybe some people would have Josh Allen 1, but I go Mahomes, Burrow, Josh Allen, 1, 2, 3. Then I would probably go
Justin
Herbert. Here's the question: do you put Lamar over Russell? I don't think I do. I think I'm going Russell over Lamar. I think I'd have Russell.
You're going
5.
Russell over Lamar?
I'd go Russell over Lamar. Yeah, I would. Lamar. The only thing about I like Lamar, but look at Lamar's last 2 years. Lamar's last 2 years are not good. As far as his stats, this is what he's done the last 2 years. Well, Russell was terrible this last year. Terrible. But yeah, I would. Lamar is such a threat running. He's such a threat running. 17-7, 17 touchdowns, 7 picks this last year. That's not bad. The year before that, though, was not great. Yeah, to me, I'll say this. If it was just on last year, I would take Lamar over Russell. But career-wise, I'm taking Russell over Lamar. So, Coach, good stuff, man. Have a great week. Oh, wait a second. We got one more here. Did I get that one?
It was a yellow one.
Wait a second. Did we just get a bunch of them here?
Yeah, I think you did, Larry.
Let's see. Wait, let's finish.
Hey, get that money, man. Pig in a pickle, baby.
Seriously. Flav jumps in. He says, coming in late. Sorry if this was said, but if Darnold left money on the table and was told he would compete, and then the 49ers traded his friendly deal, it would be an awful business move for attracting other free agents. He's a big boy, though. He made the decision by himself early on in the process to come here. I hear what you're saying, though, Flav. I hear what you're saying. It's like you're betraying If you somehow communicated to Darnold, come here, and if you went after him and recruited him and then traded him to Green Bay at the end of preseason, that would be bad. But if he, we don't know that was the situation. He could have begged them to come here.
Hold on, wait a minute. Don't Sam and Trey have the same agent?
That's interesting. I don't know. I don't know that. Let me see. I don't know. I'm not sure how I could look that up. Stephen Draper says Trey is going to shock a lot of doubters. I agree. I think Trey's going to play better. I think Trey's going to play. I have all the Niner quarterbacks playing well this preseason and giving them no easy decisions. And then Flav says, don't forget, Darnold and Trey have the same agent. It would be a bad move. This is Flav. It would be a bad move if that was the case. Well, wait a second. If? Oh, I get you. If they traded him. If they traded Darnold. Well, if they don't, that's $14 million of backups.
The Niners have shown that they can, but they're capable of this. This isn't the same exact situation, but they did it with Nate Sudfeld. They just let him go.
Money. They'll eat the money if they want to. They'll go with their guy.
Yeah, they'll eat it,
and they'll do what they got to do to go with the guys they want to go with.
Yeah.
I'll say this, man, it's going to be juicy. What do you got cooking the rest of the day? I got Marcelino McCrary-Ball coming up. You got a quick thought for me on Marcelino?
Ask Marcelino how he feels about the upcoming season and what he learned from being behind Azeez Al-Sayer for those couple of years. I want to know, right? Like, because I believe
I'm writing that down. What did he learn from Azeez?
Yeah. What did he learn from Azeez? Like,
Azeez told me in December, Coach, that Marcelino was going to ball out this year. I think Azeez knew he was
Marcelino's vet, wasn't he? Wasn't his mentor, his vet?
Well, Marcelino told me in the locker room a couple times last year that I said, "Why did you come here? You're a good young linebacker. They got the deepest linebacker room. There had to be other places you could have gone and played right away." And he's like, "You know what? Dre and Fred and Azeez are straight dogs." And he goes, "I want to be like them." And I just felt like I could come here. Johnny Holland's a great coach. I could learn from the best. And he made a smart move, because here we are 1 year later. Azeez left in free agency. And I think Marcelino's poised to have a real nice year. They've been running Marcelino as the backup Mike linebacker. So he may have the green dot in the preseason when Fred's not in there, playing middle backer. And this guy came to Indiana as a nickel. He was a corner, nickel, safety, and in the NFL, he's playing linebacker. It's amazing.
I think he's really gonna turn on, man. I like his body too, man. Like, yeah.
He's jacked too. He's put on about 10 pounds, it looks like.
Mm-hmm. Very excited. I mean, shoot, I'm not doing anything but I'm gonna shoot some more today.
Now, you go to a target range and
so I
fire
got some
the
targets
crossbow?
that I go to. Yeah, I got some targets. Like, I'm trying to learn how to shoot with a harder weapon system, because I feel like it's more ethical for the hunt. You know what I'm saying? So I'm trying to learn how to shoot with a crossbow.
Are you a hunter?
Yeah, I hunt.
What do you hunt?
Game bird, waterfowl, boar, bucks.
Wild boar?
Yeah.
You ever bagged one?
Yeah. It's good. It's good stuff, man.
Oh, I'm sure it tastes great.
Larry.
I went to a restaurant in spring training a few years ago, and they had on the menu wild boar chops, and I had them. They were incredible.
It's good meat.
It's incredible.
They're invasive. So there is no season. You know what I'm saying? You can get down. You can go to Tennessee, the Carolinas, Georgia, Texas, and get out there with some ATVs. You know what I'm saying? Get your dogs out there. We can go get them, baby.
Really?
You know, we can pray and spray.
And one arrow will take down a boar, or you got to hit it multiple times.
Well, I'm not trying to crossbow with boar. I want to do this with deer. So
okay,
I'm trying.
So what do you hunt the boar with? A gun?
Yeah. So you can use pretty much anything, but I like to use an old school lever action.
Look at you.
So yeah. So I go in with it. It's a really heavy caliber rifle, and You go in with a lever action, or you can go in with an AR and just really pepper some things up. It's good fun, man. It's good fun.
Man, I gotta come out. You take me hunting.
Dog, come on. Come with me, man. We'll get the trucks going. It's gonna be a blast.
I'm down for that. Coach, have a great Saturday. Love your energy, love your vibe. We always chop it up and it's always good stuff. I appreciate you. Let's do it again soon.
Always, man. Love your platform, Larry, till we meet again. Kev! My man, Kev!
He's running the channel. He's my boss. He's my boss.
Kev Krueg.
Your boss is Hannibal. My boss is Kev.
Yeah, man. I love Kev, man. Tell Kev the good show, Kev.
Have a good one, man.
All right, bro. Thank you, man.
See you, Coach. Take care. The coach checking in. All right. Action-packed. Almost 2 hours, hour and 55-minute live stream. A lot of people with a lot of thoughts, a lot of chat, a lot of supers, a lot of, it's amazing. The coach will get us revved up. I know there's people that agree with him. There's people that disagree with him. What I love about the coach, he doesn't do a live stream like he's running for office. He's not trying to build a consensus. He's not trying to win everybody over. He's giving you his honest opinions on how he feels. And I love it. I absolutely love it because that's the way I do it as well. I want to tell you how I honestly feel. And I'm not running for office. I'm not trying to, win everybody over. I'm just going to give you my honest opinions. And that's what he's doing. He's giving us his honest opinions. You can agree, you can disagree, but I love the way he brings it with a lot of energy and a lot of passion. And, we've talked before. He's like, at the end of the day, we're all Niner fans. We're all Niner fans, and we want to see the Niners win. And, whoever they go with at quarterback, we're all going to get behind. It's as simple as that. Robbie says, lazy Larry for president. Larry, you're fucking lazy. I love you, boy, but you're fucking lazy. All right, let's hit a couple spots right here, and we'll come back and hit the chat and then get on with the rest of our Saturday on the Krueg Show. We are brought to you by our title sponsor, Pig and a Pickle. Best barbecue in Northern California. Check them out. Marin County, Emeryville. They're open 7 days a week in Marin. They're open Wednesday through Sunday in Emeryville, inside the Emeryville Public Marketplace. The brisket is amazing. The brisket chili, if you haven't tried it, absolutely mouth-watering. Here's what they look like in Marin.
So New York style sausage was started over 70 years ago. We are the largest producer of fresh Italian sausage on the West Coast.
What makes our sausage in New York style is really the recipe came from back east, from New York, from Connecticut.
If you look at all of our labels, there's maximum 4 or 5 ingredients, which we're really proud of.
There's no preservatives, no MSG, fresh in, fresh out.
The pork comes in fresh, goes out fresh. There's never any freezing throughout the process. We've always used fine quality cuts. We're never gonna deter from that. It's one of the reasons why our sausage is so good. I guarantee you put our sausage up against anybody else's from a flavor standpoint, no one will beat it, hands down.
And do yourself a favor and do me a favor. Go buy a package of the New York style Italian sausage. Guaranteed you will love it, guaranteed.
All right, coming down the home stretch on the Krueg Show. Okay, great article by my good friend Kyle Madsen, and he's talking about the bust-out players for this year. Who is going to break out and really be good for the 49ers this year? And Madsen's got a bunch of guys here. He's got Robert Beal Jr., the defensive end from Georgia. There's opportunity. There's no question. And Beal is 6'3", close to 250, 82-inch wingspan, 4.44 speed off the edge. I like that one. He's got Kalia Davis, who, didn't play last year because of a torn ACL, and was on the NFI list, the non-football injury list, and came back to practice late in the year and looked amazing. Now, can he stay healthy? That's really the deal. Kalia Davis, if he's healthy, is a little bit of a cross between Kevin Givens and DJ Jones. He's the size of DJ Jones. He's got the pass rush ability of Kevin Givens. So I'm really looking for Kalia Davis. I think that's a great one. He's also got Kalen Laburn, the running back from Marshall. He says, don't sleep on an undrafted rookie running back with the 49ers. And he's totally right. You think of all the guys they've had, Raheem Mostert, Jeff Wilson, even late round guys like Elijah Mitchell, JP Mason. I mean, it's the Niners have a great eye for this. I would say add Ronald Awatt to that list, but Laburn's interesting. He had over 300 carries this last year for the Marshall Thundering Herd. Was a 5-star recruit coming out of high school, started off at Florida State, graduated from Florida State, then transferred to Marshall. And Laburn, I'll tell you, from looking at him in the mini camp and the OTAs, really, really squatty, powerful lower body, powerful legs. He runs through arm tackles. He can catch the ball, and he's got a little bit more scoot, a little bit more speed than you think. So that's a good one. And then Madsen also has Braden Willis. Willis, got that gold helmet designation by the 49ers. They love him. And Willis showed a lot, I thought, in the minicamp. I'll make a prediction right now. I think Braden Willis is going to be tight end 2 behind George Kittle this year. I think he's going to hit the ground running. I think he's a nice receiver, but he's a tenacious blocker as well. He's a little undersized, but Braden Willis, I thought he showed no fear. I think he's the kind of guy, he doesn't tiptoe across the middle. He runs across the middle like he owns it. So I can't wait to see him. And then he's got Marcelino here as well. Marcelino McCrary-Ball. He says he's in a battle for the starting Sam linebacker spot. He's like McCrary-Ball's a second-year undrafted free agent, spent all of last year on the practice squad. He says he may not have the size the team wants from a Sam linebacker, but he's super intriguing athlete whose familiarity with the Niner defense could give him the inside track as a special teams player and potentially a long-term developmental player as a replacement for Dre Greenlaw if the Niners get priced out of Greenlaw's services when he becomes a free agent after the 2024 season. So I'm a big fan of Marcelino. He's going to be by today at 2:00. And I'm not sure if we'll tape it or go live. If we go live, we'd love to see all you guys back here at 2:00 in the chat about 4 hours from now. And, if you got some great questions for Marcelino, we'll fire them away. Bush Hogger says Robert Beal Jr. He says 3.44. No, I think he means 4.40. Yeah. These numbers are a little 54-inch vertical would be quite the vertical, but yeah, he's a great athlete. There's no question. And he played in a part-time role, but Kirby Smart and the Niners have a pretty good relationship. John Lynch and Kirby Smart are buddies, and supposedly Kirby told John, "Hey man, if you want this guy just to set the edge in the run game and come and burn the edge as a pass rusher in the pass game, he can do that. If you want him to drop into coverage and cover people and backpedal and be a coverage player down the field, not so much. But in that wide 9, if you just want him to hunt quarterbacks and set the edge against the run, he can do it, and he can do it on a high level." So Beal has got a huge opportunity in front of him because, Kerry Hyder, Austin Bryant, Cleveland Farrell, These are the guys in front of him. Obviously, Drake and Bosa. But if Beal can really play, he's gonna play. I mean, there's reps there. The one thing about Chris is he will use his defensive line in a rotation. So if Beal's ready to roll, he's going to make an impact because 4.4 speed off the edge is the real deal. It's funny, the Eagles took Nolan Smith out of Georgia. I think he ran 4.39 or 4.4 or something like that. Here's another guy from Georgia, also 4.4 speed, didn't play as much, but wouldn't that be interesting if both the Niners and the Eagles have 4.4 edge rushers, both from the University of Georgia, both making an impact as a rookie? It'll be fun to watch. All In says hidden Georgia talent. I'll tell you, we're at that point in time now where Georgia, Bama, Ohio State, LSU, there's a few programs, A&M to some degree. There's so much talent on the top tier teams in college football that you're seeing guys who don't even really get on the field at Alabama get drafted. Guys who'd never made an impact at Georgia get drafted. Guys who are just guys at LSU or A&M or Ohio State get drafted. That's how stacked and loaded they are. If you ever want to see the difference between the NFL and college, if the Niners lose a key player, Kyle Shanahan will come to the microphone and the podium and he'll look like visibly distraught. If Nick Saban loses a key player, it's like he's totally unaffected. Why? Because he's got another can full of guys that are all 5 stars that are all just locked and loaded and ready to step in. College coaches never, outside of a quarterback injury, they almost never seem like they're sweating injuries at all. This guy's down, this guy's up, this guy's out, this guy's in. They don't care. It's like, not that they don't care, but they're unaffected by it because they get so much depth. Not every program, but the top tier programs have depth that is just, they don't sweat the injuries. They know they're coming, and the next guy up might be better than the last guy. All right, that's going to do it for us. Check us out at 2:00 with Marcelino McCrary-Ball. Hope everybody enjoyed the live stream with the coach. Have a great rest of your Saturday. Peace.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Careful, you gon' get exactly what you asked for. Here for whatever you bring me, getting handled. I answer.